My name is Amnon Drori. I'm coming from Octopi. We have a booth 406. If you want to then see more stuff with regards to the product, I'll be more than happy to show you. What we wanted to share with you today is something that we personally had to go through, my partner and myself, a couple of years back after working with leading BI groups in large companies. One of the things that we had experienced is this awkward event where I was going to this management meeting and I was showing how many new customers our company had acquired in the past quarter. So I was showing that we had acquired 137 new customers, and everybody was really, really happy. And then 30 seconds later, the CFO raises his hand and say, well, I'm looking at the same report and get 122. So now the CEO is looking at the both of us saying, well, this guy is saying 137, this one is saying 122. That's about 15 different customers difference. And the average deal is about $1 million. Somebody owes me about $15 million. So my question to you, does that sound familiar? Right. So at that point of time, that was the good news. The bad news was that we were asked on the spot to try to understand which one of the numbers is the right number. So without understanding the technicalities of it, we approached the BI, the business intelligence, saying, could you track the data movement process that landed on these two reports being named the same name? How long do you think it took them to find that out? How much? No, not that big. It took them about 9 working days, almost 2 weeks of time to do reverse engineering how the data landed on that report. When we asked them, why did it take you so much? They said, you don't understand how complicated it is. I said, so hit me. They said, well, what we needed to do is to understand that these 2 different reports are generated by 2 different reporting systems. And we needed to understand the structure of the report and try to understand the relationship between the presentation, semantic, and physical layer, and understand the column, the structure, and data fields and data elements, and then trace back those data elements, which are the exact name tables and views, and exact name ETL processes, which, by the way, are generated by 2 different ETL systems, are responsible for the data movement until it landed on that report. This is complicated. My response was, I don't really understand what you're saying, but it must be complicated. So the question was, how can we simplify this? How can we help the business intelligence team not to spend so much time? When I was asking what is it that you were looking for, they said metadata. What is metadata? It's the context of the data, the labeling of the data, in which then we can find the data that we were interested to see. So the reason I put that here, even though it might not be politically correct, is that was the first question that the CEO was asking us. Where the is the data? And from that point on, it kind of bugged us. What can we do to help the business intelligence team that is responsible for the data movement process from the source systems, through the ETL, through the databases, through the analysis, all the way to the BI tools, as you know, as reporting tools, to that be trusted? How can we help finding the data movement process with a click of a button and not invest so much time in making this happen? So as we were challenging ourselves, we talked to other colleagues in other companies, in healthcare, insurance, telecom, finance, banking, retail, gaming. And it seems to be that after talking to almost about 250 companies in the past 2 years, when you do the calculation, they spend more than 50% of their time trying to trace, discover, understand metadata. And mostly it's more difficult on the technical side rather than on the business side. So now the question, can we do something about it? Well, we spent the past, I think, 4 years understanding what is the practice, how people do that, how do they track and discover metadata from a variety of different tools being done by different vendors. And one of the things that we've seen is this picture. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Right. So you have business applications on one side, you have ETL tools that are responsible to extract, transform, and load the data. And an average organization has thousands of ETL processes. Storing the data in database tables where there are tens of thousands of database tables and views. And then you have tens of thousands of reports being consumed by thousands and tens of thousands of people. So the possible permutations of data travel could be anything from the lowest bar that we've seen 250 million ways to the upper bar of more than 4.5 billion type of metadata journey. And that's point to point. I'm not mentioning joins and splits and things like that. So we thought, could we automate that process in a way that it can help us understand the data movement process, not in 5 days, not in 5 hours, not in 5 minutes, but in 5 seconds? What is it that the technology can offer to us that we can leverage and have the technology working for us rather than us working and spending more time? So this is what we've done. Understanding how business intelligence teams work enable us to understand that they're spending so much time trying to understand where the metadata that represents the data exists, and try then to understand the cross connection in order to understand the relationship, and you never can be prepared for the next thing you need to find out, because every use case is something new. Because if you would have known that in the beginning, probably you would document this, or somebody would remember this. But in a rich environment, when you have tens of millions of data elements, and sometimes they carry different naming for the same meaning, name of product, product name. That creates chaos. Especially we see that now when we work with European companies and US companies that are involved in the GDPR in Europe. The ability, the need to control the metadata through that to understand the data movement process is critical. So what we've done, we've looked at a couple of technologies, anything from machine learning, progress analysis, static analysis, algorithmics, and we combine some of them together in order to create a product. And that product is designed to replace the manual work that people do today. What we actually do, or what we found out, that any organization is not using a single vendor tool. It's kind of a blend of a lot of different vendors that participate in the different steps of the data movement process. So you can see Informatica as an ETL or SSIS or data stage or Talent or TLSQL or PLSQL or store procedure and Oracle and Teradata and Hadoop and MySQL and MicroStrategy and Tableau and Qlik, and the list is really, really long. So what we're doing, we are extracting the metadata in a very, very smart way, and then we centralize it to a single enterprise repository. So what we also leverage is the elasticity and the capabilities of the cloud. Our product runs on Azure and AWS, in which then you can secure very highly the way you manage all those disparate metadata. It's being encrypted, and then it's being analyzed. So all the metadata from all those systems is being uploaded to the cloud, and then you can do great things with it. And I'm going to show you this in just a minute. You can discover cross-platform data lineage or data flow in 5 seconds, because the metadata that has been analyzed is already ready to be viewed. So how can you do that very, very, very fast? You can allow business users to navigate and find analyzed information. Understand that product name actually means name of product. So when you see in a report a column name and you can't find it anywhere else, now you can understand how that relationship could be tailored automatically. You can protect knowledge in your organization. I don't know how many of you have BI people that I remember everything, it's in my head. And then when you need them and they're not, now you start struggling. And mostly is determine the impact of making changes downstream. So I'm going to show you now 2 use cases that are very, very popular that we see happening, I would say anything between 20, 30 times a week in any customer that we work with. So I'm going to bring the application here. I'm going to show what I mean by that. Here's a typical environment. In this case, we've analyzed information from SSIS, SSRS, BO, Informatica, and Qlik, kind of to show you a variety of different vendors that participate in the different steps of the data movement process. Now, everybody wants to see the lineage, but very few would like to invest the effort that it would take to get to the point that actually you can see the lineage. Preparation, documentation, interviews, and things like that. So we wanted to avoid that as well. We hated that we had to pay so much for professional services for people to interview us and document this, which then eventually will be populated in a product. So if you wish to extract metadata, just go here, choose the system that you want, either in ETL or database or files or reporting tools, click the system that you want, and automatically an extractor, should you allow it, will interact with the metadata repository of that system, and within an hour the metadata is extracted. Creates an XML file, go to encryption, go to the cloud. Now the product can work on our cloud, hosted on AWS or Azure, or on your private cloud. So now the metadata is here, it's being analyzed, and within 24 hours you get an access to see the following. So in this case, the gathering of the metadata is being represented by 8 ETL processes, 143 tables in view, 17 reports. Let's take use case number 1. And that use case is real use case. We were challenged by our customers saying, I've looked at a report called customer products, and the data was wrong. How fast, how accurate can you point out to the exact database tables and views that are responsible for moving the data landing in that report? This is what we showed them. So at the end of the day, we type in the name of the report. And we found the report here in the inventory, and we start searching. What you see now is in real time, where all the metadata is centralized and analyzed, ready to be searched very, very fast. Here's the report that I was looking at, and there are actually 2. In some cases, the customer doesn't even know which is the exact name of the report that they were complained by a certain user. So once I know the name of the report, I can access the report from here. I don't need to go to the reporting system, and I can get information about the report, and I can do also this. I promise 5 seconds. Yep, this is it. So what you see in front of you is the following. You can see that this exact name report is built out of a view that is created by 3 database tables and 3 ETL processes. Can you guess how long did it take them to do this manually? Just this? I'm going to make it easier for you. 3 people, 5 days. And I'm going to show you why. Because during the search, they found out that this single report, the downstream starts. Let's see if I'm clicking the right button. No. How do you do right click here? Or it doesn't exist in Mac? 2 fingers. All right. Control. No. No. So can somebody help me with that? Or okay, can somebody help me understand the right click, how you do the right click here? All right, so come and help me out. But what you would see is that ETL process is generated via Informatica, and the other ones are generated via SSIS. When they try to understand what are the ETL processes that are involved in loading data to that report, they could not understand because it wasn't documented anywhere. I want to right-click this. Wow, stay, don't move. Don't move. Yeah, great, thank you. So this one is from Informatica, and how you go back? This one. And this one is from SSIS. So the fact that you're using 2 different vendor systems, writing 2 different ETL processes that are streaming data to a single report was the most of the time that they had spent on. Now, when we asked this customer Well, what indeed happened in reality? Why the data in that report was not accurate? The customer said that that specific ETL load data warehouse was modified a week earlier to the business user complaining about that report. All right, so we asked him another question. Well, if you modify the ETL, why didn't you check that these reports are going to be impacted? What do you think the answer was? We didn't know. Because if we would have known that, obviously, you can imagine that we would test it in the staging area before going to production and not have production issues. If they were to use Octopi at that time, this is what would happen. When they design a change, they will ask to see this lineage. Now, this is what they would get. Nothing. Oh, there's no internet? Okay, let's try it again. Load data warehouse. Let's search for that ETL. Okay, here's the ETL. Let's do the lineage. Now on the other way around. Yep. Now this is what they would get. If they would have planned it correctly, having this type of capability to understand the relationship between that single ETL to everything that is impacted or connected or related to that ETL, they would have known there are 6 database tables creating 2 views that are generated about 6 reports. And now the problem is even more, because if you do right-click on the top here, you would see that this one is generated in SSRS, and this one,
you actually press it.
Okay, you have better fingers than I am. Okay, and this one is the business object. So now it's the opposite picture. A single ETL is responsible for loading data in the downstream to 2 reports being generated by 2 different reporting tools. So if they could have known that, they could have saved a lot of time. What actually happens is that half of these reports were reported by the business users complaining about data mismatch. And they had to do root cause analysis to each and every one of these reports manually, finding out a couple of days later that the root cause has to do with that specific ETL. And unfortunately, these kind of incidents happen all the time. So how you can simplify this if not leveraging automation? Another thing that you can do is, with the fact that you already have the metadata, you can actually drill. So,
press it like it was a mouse.
Right.
Just once. Yeah.
Wow, I'm good at it. And you can drill to another layer. This is the container. And this is the sequencers. And this is the drill into the map. And see what happens now. You can drill to this complicated map all the way to the field level without the need to understand where does it document, what is it, where you can find it, who else in the organization have this knowledge, and you can pinpoint all the way to the field level all the transformations and the changes that has to do with a specific field right here, and understand the root of each and every field, even if they change their name, product name of product. And the power of this is the fact that not only you have this mostly updated, you can actually travel within the ETL right and left, because sometimes a certain map, which as you see here is a target, is a source to another map that was previously done. So you can go and browse even further to the map, in this case, that is the source of this map. Now, if you want to do any change in any field, you need to be able to understand the mapping of that field and the related connections at any given point of time, because understanding the metadata is not done once. Our customers use Octopi to refresh the metadata in an automated manner every week. That's 50 times a year. And when you try to do this in a manual manner, it's almost impossible. So what I wanted to share is these kind of two use cases where you enjoy both root cause analysis and impact analysis. And obviously, you can browse right and left from the database tables right and left. And the automation part that enables you to extract the metadata regularly and then analyze it and then browse it is something that repetitively done, which lower completely the effort that any customer needs to do just to be able to see the data travel within the BI. Yeah, you had a question? Right. Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to say, okay, since the last snapshot, something inside of here has changed? Is that flagged or highlighted? So I know, oh, in here is where something is new.
Absolutely. This goes back to what I just described as what our customers do when they refresh the metadata. One of the things that is the derivative of that is the versioning. So let's say that you start to work with Octopi and you've uploaded, what is it, April? Yeah, April metadata. And any organization doesn't stand still, so you keep changing all the time. You delete fields, you add fields, you change the map, you add a table, you delete a column, you add a report, you change a report, you merge a rule. It's all the time changing. So when you go to May and you want to go to production, just upload this to Octopi and you can do versioning of the differentiation in which Octopi can alert saying, here are the number of fields that have been changed. By the way, here's the number of fields that have been duplicated. And here are the fields that carry the same meaning, nevertheless, they are being called differently, you should know. One of our customers used Octopi when they bought another company and wanted to merge two ETL systems one to another. So the master company had Informatica, the other one had Data Stage. So the question was, what is it within the Data Stage that we can eliminate, not recreate them in Informatica? So question number one, do we need to migrate all the ETL processes that exist in Data Stage? Question number two, from the ones that we do want to recreate in Informatica, which are the ones that are closer, similar to what already exists in Informatica that we can reuse? So the exercise that they've done, they mapped the entire infrastructure at that time, and they ran a lineage automatically to all of the 5,000 ETL processes in Data Stage, finding out that 40% of them are not being consumed by any report. So if there are no reports consuming data from these ETLs, so why do we need them? And the second thing, they compared, we have a feature here called compare. You can compare ETLs, either from the same system between development and production or two different systems. And you can see the understanding of what is it you can expand with the existing ones and now recreate new ones. So versioning is a very, very important feature, and that has to do with the fact that it doesn't cost you to upload new metadata. Why? Because it's done automatically. So our message is, if you want to drive a car, don't spend time on building it. How many of you build a car? So many. Okay. Really? Wow. So it's not a question to you. The last thing I want to show you about this is also something really cool. We have another way that we created it. And by the way, what we're proud of is this product started as an idea, but it was built out of feedback from more than 50 different companies. So we consistently talked to prospects and customers, what is it that you think the product should do in order to serve your needs better? So I would give a lot of credit to our customers who are participating with us in leading a new solution that is built to this era, I would say, rather than extending existing technologies that are not capable of doing this. So in this case, what I wanted to show is that we had this project with a government. They wanted to change the number of characters in the license plate from 8 to 9. There were too many cars and they needed another number. So now they wanted to create a new license plate that contains 9 digits. The derivative of that was all the insurance companies had to modify, or at least to make sure that they can contain that new number. It means that every insurance company, which actually ended up working with us, needed to find the license plate field in the entire infrastructure. Now, imagine when you tell that to the BI guy. Where is the field that is called license plate or LLP plate or lice underscore plate or anything that may carry that meaning? I'm sorry? Yeah. So this is what you do now in 5 seconds, so don't blink. I'm going to type in another metadata item or data element, or it can be a const or a formula. And when I do this is what you get. This is not a video, this is real. Again, all the metadata has been analyzed, indexed, and modelized within Octopi, so it's ready to be fired up and presented. Each and every system that you've seen that we've extracted metadata is being broken down to different dimensions, colored in green, indicating that we found that specific field, formula, const, calculation that you were looking for, and the number represents how many times that specific occurrence exists. And there are thousands of them here. And each stakeholder within the BI can drill and get more information related to the metadata item or the element that they were looking for, either in the Informatica in this case, or in the SSIS. If you have SQL commands, you can drill into that. You can see the SQL itself. You can see the different reporting tools where we analyze their presentation layer, semantic layer, and physical layer, which as a result, you can see the technical metadata on the first one, and then the data dictionary, which actually represents the semantics within that layer, within that reporting system. Yeah? So the question was, can you tag the critical data elements and see? The answer is yes. Okay? So you can go on and on and on. And we have some customers who are using this for this kind of small environment. We have customers who are using Octopi when they connect 20, 30, and even, I think the largest is about 38 different systems. Because they compare environments, dev, and production. Or they use Octopi to connect different countries, like in Europe. So the message is, what we wanted to have in this product we could not find in any other product are 3 things. 1, cross-platform in 2 dimensions. Source to report through the ETL, through the database, the analysis, and reporting. The second thing is the ability to drill into each and every one and see the inner lineage without the need to understand each and every system in a manual manner. So that's one. The second, we didn't want this to be painful to be able to get that. We're asking for 1 hour of your time to run the extractor. And if you want this to be done repetitively, you can schedule this and allow the XML files that contains that metadata to be uploaded to your account and be analyzed. And within 24 hours, you get this. And the third, can we have a product that is fun to work with? At least we try to do that. We used to work with other tools that were not as friendly, as intuitive, as easy as possible. And the way we see that is that it creates collaboration between different stakeholders within the same BI team, even though they carry different roles. So developers, data analysts, data architects, business analysts, support and maintenance, and data scientists as well using that. So what I wanted to share with you is why we created that product. It may have this feature, that feature, but the concept of the product has to do with a blog that I wrote about adding more days to your life. I remember spending days, weeks, and always my boss was complaining, saying, it's not on time. Why does it take you that long? Oh, you fixed it and now the data is still again, go and do that again. We wanted to eliminate that. So with that said, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to address. Yes? The answer is yes. Specifically with elation? No, I'm not recalling anyone. No. No, the answer is no, not at this point. It will be ready in the next 3 months. It has to do actually with when we established the company, we said we don't want to deal with all of these kind of systems. We want to deal with the big data. So when we ended up talking to customers, they said, well, supporting big data and not rational and SQL is important, but we have something more urgent. So urgent comes before important. I said, what is urgent? Well, we have this infrastructure for the past 3 to 5 years, and we're completely lost. So this is bleeding. So yeah, I believe that we're going to be ready with all the structured, semi-structured, unstructured, far before the market is actually going to pay attention to that as a significant part of the data. Today, working with dozens of clients and prospects, these kind of systems rule about 90% of the data that is being handed to the business users. And they are bleeding in that sense. And this provides agility to an existing infrastructure. Yes, please. The answer is yes. You can run this product by using our cloud, or we can install the product on your cloud, but it's a cloud product. Right. Because if I'm going to say what my interpretation is of the cloud on-prem, you're going to find how old I am. Because on-prem, from my generation, is kind of the desktop application. It's not. The on-prem now is your private cloud. With what, sorry? Yes. Yeah, both cloud and on-prem. Great. So we're at the booth. If you have additional questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you so much for your time.